Now, history taught you that the Moors invaded Spain way back then, for 1,200 years or something. And then they went on, Rome, Carthage, a lot of them speaking Spanish. Boom, they fought all the way through the Marathon War, Persia War, Alexander the Great War. Then they end up, Spain ended up in the United States. Now they had Africa in them when they made it to America, okay? They already had African DNA in them. And then they met African again when Christopher Columbus came to Haiti. You see what I'm saying? Then they had statues of Africans out here way before the voyages of what they talking about in the history books. You feel what I'm saying now? So a person want to say this, say that. Only thing separates people in America is the language and the borders, because Spain took over, the language took over a lot of parts of America. See, but English took over the North America, and the other one took over Spain, but the same people. We only got different languages. You see what I'm saying? But some people don't want to accept that they had African in them a couple of times. Ancient time and predate time. To what you would say. That who helped you struggle. Even with the Civil Rights Bill that came up. And what's the argument today? The Obama health care bill. That's the argument of today. What's in that bill? You feel what I'm saying now? We're making them shut the government down behind that bill. Was Obama a good president? Or was he just in there for to be a player, a pawn? Now, everybody say they with the Bible, but they're going against the Bible for what he did. I'm just saying, if he did it, when they signed it in, or whatever, how he did it, you got 4 years to get it right. Now, everybody should get together and work on things to get the country right. Cut all that arguing, put all that aside, and get down to business in that White House. See what I'm saying now? You get a president in there, he go in there and he do some executive orders. Now, nobody speak on that. Now, you got, after Obama get in office, you got what people saying, oh, ask people to identify what is a woman. People can't even identify. What? If you ask them a question, oh, what is a woman? They can't identify what was a woman when that came in. And then all of a sudden, you got what? Swim competition, all kind of stuff going on to the point to make a person say, hey, what's going on here? Now, we going forward or backward? Are we going with the Bible or going against the Bible? Or what's going on here? It seems to me, you know what I'm saying now? You go back to this, say, okay, in Congress, ask the question, what is a woman? Now watch this one.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Title IX was a landmark civil rights law. It helped create the incredible breadth of women's sports and girls' sports that we see across the country. I believe in girls' sports. I believe in women's sports. I'm the proud father of 2 daughters who are both athletes. I think participating in competitive sports is a wonderful thing for a young girl. I think it is a wonderful thing for a woman. And I think, unfortunately, today's Democrat Party has decided that women's sports and girls' sports no longer matters. And they're willing to push radical legislation designed to destroy girls' sports and women's sports. Ms. Gaines, I want to thank you for your courage. You are relatively young, but you have demonstrated incredible courage And because you have dared to speak up, you have been demonized, you have been vilified. I saw when you were attacked by a leftist mob at San Francisco State University for daring to speak up. You had an incredible record as a swimmer at the University of Kentucky. You were a two-time NCAA All-American. You were a five-time SEC champion. You're an SEC record holder and a two-time Olympic trial qualifier. But yet on March 27th, 2022, something changed. What happened on March 17th, 2022?
That's when Thomas and I raced in the 200 freestyle and again resulted in a tie.
And so you tied. What was the consequence of tying?
We went behind the awards podium where typically you're handed your trophy, you're marched out, you're named an All-American. And so we go back there and the official looks at both Thomas and myself and says, "Great job, but you guys tied. And we only have one trophy, therefore we're giving this trophy to Leah." And I question this and I say, why? And at first I shortened it in my testimony, but really he stumbled on his words. He didn't know how to answer this. And at first he's, well, we're just doing this in chronological order. To which I further pressed and I said, okay, well, what are you being chronological about? Because we tied. And if we're doing this off alphabetical order, G comes before T. So what are you being chronological about? To which this wasn't a script they had prepared for him. And he actually appreciated his honesty. He did say, we have to give the trophy for Leah because Leah has to have it for pictures. They've made that clear. Leah has to have the trophy for pictures. You can pose with this trophy, but you have to give yours back. You have to go home empty-handed. Leah Thomas takes the trophy home. End of story.
Now, let me ask you, as someone who's competed at the elite level, in your experience, is there a difference between women and men?
Of course. I think we learned this at a very young age, watching even 12 and unders play. Going through puberty causes irreversible advantage that no matter the training, no matter the diet, no matter any alterable change you can make will overcome that male advantage, especially in sports like swimming where lung capacity matters so much. Even something as silly as throat size, men have on average a 40% larger throat, which sounds like it's nothing, but when you're grasping for air, that 40% larger throat makes a huge difference in athletic success, not to mention height. You guys know the differences.
Ms. Robinson, do you agree with Ms. Gaines that there's a difference between women and men?
If the question is about trans women,
I'm just asking, is there a difference between women and men?
what I can say is that the NCAA has rules in place. They've had rules in place for the last decade, and when this competition happened,
I'm going to try again.
the rules were clear.
Do you believe there's a difference between women and men? It's a yes/no question. Do you believe there's a difference?
Oh, I think that we're talking about this case with the NCAA.
No, I'm asking a question. Do you believe there's a difference between women and men? Most people could answer this very simply. I'm curious if you're willing to do so.
Oh, absolutely. I'm just putting it into the context of the conversation that we're having. I think that there are definitions related to sex.
Is that a yes? So I'm trying to get a yes or no. I'm not trying to get speech. Is there a difference between women and men?
I think that there are definitions for biological sex.
Okay, so you're not answering that. Let me ask you this question then. Why do women's sports exist? If you can't define a difference between women and men, why not abolish women's sports and just tell little girls to swim with little boys and see who wins?
Oh, I'm simply saying that that sex
My
is different
question,
than gender.
why
and I
do
believe
why
that
do
women's
women's
sports have a great
exist?
value. I mean, Senator, I'll tell you right
Ms.
now.
Robinson, please answer the question I'm asking you.
Absolutely.
Why do women's sports exist?
I think that there are so many positive benefits to sports.
But
I mean,
why have a
we talked
separate
about it
category
today.
for women? If there's no difference between women and men, why to have women's sports?
I'm saying that there's a difference between sex and gender, and that the NCAA has rules in place, which they have for the last decade.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to enter into the record an article from Duke Law called Comparing Athletic Performances for the Best Elite Women to Boys and Men. And it goes through examining in 2017 the top records for women in the world in various track and field events. So, for example, in the 100 meter, the top record for women in the world was 10.71 seconds. Now, that record for the number one woman in the world in 2017 was, in the year 2017, broken by 124 boys under 18. In that same year, the record for the number one competing woman in the 100-meter dash in the world was broken by a total of 2,474 men. If the radical Democrat agenda to destroy girls' sports and women's sports succeeds, little girls will not have a chance to compete. So I ask unanimous consent that this article be entered into the record.
Without objection. Senator Padilla.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Colleagues, a recent
Senator Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and thanks to all of our witnesses here today. Ms. Robinson, I want to follow up by trying to understand your answer to one of Senator Cruz's questions, and this is really a question, not a suggestion. Do I understand your position to be that there are two sexes, but there can be more than two genders?
I wouldn't even say two, and we've got Dr. Lopez here as well, but there's also the definition of intersex. I think that often in these conversations we're conflating sex and gender, and I do want to affirm here that trans women are women. That is their gender.
Okay, but I'm trying to understand. Do you make a distinction between sex and gender?
Yes, sir.
Okay, explain that. Just, do you think there are more than two sexes?
I believe that there's a definition for intersex as well that I want to acknowledge. But sex is assigned at birth.
I'm just trying to understand. I'm thoroughly confused. So you're born, I'm talking about biology, male, female, and what else?
I believe that intersex is also acknowledged, but again, I'm not a doctor here. What I can
And what does intersex mean?
Is that there's a difference between sex and gender, and I think in these conversations we're conflating the two.
Well, but I want to start with sex. Okay, there's male, there's female. When a baby's born, before the baby has.
What he doing is telling the people that teaching your kids they can be what they want to be. Now they got, a guy told me the other day, at his schoolhouse where he take his daughter to, they got kitty litter boxes. Some kids think they're cats, animals, so they use kitty litter in the bathroom. The dude told me that the other day. I thought he was bullshitting. Got kitty litter, kids identify themselves as kitties, of animals. That's what in the Obama health plan. That's why the government is shut down right now. Behind this. But people ain't understanding. But everybody hollering about we Christian, we church people, we going by the Bible, but that's going against the Bible. He played the game of putting it, everybody ignored it. He stepped upon it to get them votes. Walked out with money. Everybody else walked out with Black Lives Matter. People went for that. They were thinking, okay, we're doing a black thing. Come to find out, it ain't about a black thing. It's about business. Frankenstein returns.
Had time to even have a sense of self. There's male, female, and intersex. There's a third sex.
I believe that is true, but I would defer to Dr. Lopez as I'm not a physician.
Okay. And how many genders are there?
I think the gender is expansive, and the definitions are always growing. Today I can tell you, I talk to young people that talk about non-binary as
more than five.
I think the gender is not a binary, is what I'm trying to say.
Are there more than five genders? I'm just trying to.
Okay, first of all, how did they get this job? Come on now. Everybody on drugs? Everybody on alcohol or something out here in this world? Oh, they don't want to check out what they're talking about? Look at this lady here. It's a lady saying they got 5 different type of people out here. Instead of a man and a woman, they got 5 different. You be what you want. They got kitty litter. Dude told me right now at his school, his daughter's school, they got kitty litter boxes.
Understand, are there more than 5 genders?
Well, I mean, I think that there was a time where women wearing pants didn't feel like it was appropriate for their gender, and yet I'm wearing pants today. I think that there are ways that we express.
Okay, saying, okay, now, okay, look at it. What she's saying. Just because a woman wearing pants, she could be a man. Now, see, now, they took it wrong. These people, now they got women out here thinking, oh my God, man, they got it wrong. They got women making almost 100, 200,000 a year, maybe more. Got a job, smart, educated, but he can't tell you what a woman is. And she a woman. You look at what's going on here. That was put into place when Obama and Joe Biden got in office. But y'all don't want to accept that. No, you don't. You don't want to accept it.
Are there more than 5 genders? Are there more than 5?
I would.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Judge Dixon, can you tell me about the full faith and credit clause of the Constitution?
It's me, Senator Kennedy, Judge Valentine.
I'm sorry, I can't see that far.
Okay.
I just got new glasses. Judge, down here, and then we'll come this way.
Judge. Ways
My
that we
question,
express
are there more than
our
5
expansive.
genders? Are there more than 5?
I wouldn't subject myself to naming how many genders there are, but what I can say is
there
that
an
gender is a
infinite
reflection.
number?
Excuse me?
There's an infinite number of genders?
I think depending on your culture, there are a lot of different genders that exist. And I can also say that it's a term that's evolving. If you look at young people today, they really don't lean into the binary of only woman and man. So I think that it's incumbent upon us not to legislate on this, but create space for them to explore what their identities are, what their gender identities are.
Let's get back to athletics. I think I understand what you're saying. There are 3 sexes, male, female, and intersex.
I believe that to be true, but again, I'm not a physician.
And there are an infinite number of genders because gender is a mental state.
Expression, and I think that there are a variety of ways that you can express your gender.
Okay, so there's infinite number. All right, let's go back to the biology. Male, female, boy, girl. Okay, biologically, do males have an advantage over females biologically in sports?
Again, I'm not a physician and I can't speak to that.
What's your real world experience?
It depends. I mean, there are some people who are born male that I'm faster than if I were to sprint against them, and some that I'm not. Some males that are taller than some women, and some that are shorter.
That a biological male has a physical advantage in sports over a biological female?
Not as a definitive statement.
Give me an example. Well, no, I don't think. How many female members of the NBA do you see?
Well, I can say that, there's been this news article about men that think that they could beat Serena Williams in tennis, right? That they think that they could actually score a point on her. And it's just not the case. She is stronger than that.
What's your experience been?
Both Serena and Venus lost to the 203rd ranked male tennis player, which they're phenoms for women. My experience, my husband, he swam at University of Kentucky as well. In terms of accolades and in terms of national ranking, I was a much better swimmer than him. He could kick my butt any day of the week without trying.
Okay. I just think, Ms. Robinson, I'm trying to understand where you're coming from. I think you lose a lot of credibility when you don't concede that a biological male has physical advantages over a biological female. I mean, I just think that's a proven fact, and you really hurt your credibility. I understand you want things to be because of an immutable characteristic. I don't. And I think that I think everybody ought to be free to be themselves. And what you do in your bedroom or what I do in my bedroom with a consenting adult is nobody's business. But if what I do in my bedroom with a consenting adult, if I decide I want to tell somebody's child about it, then other people have rights too. And I think parents have rights. And I think biological females have rights to be able to compete fairly in sport in sports. So I really think you hurt your credibility when you refuse to acknowledge that biological males have an advantage over biological females. It kind of makes me wonder about all your testimony. Thank you,
Senator
Mr. Chairman.
Kennedy. I'm sorry, go ahead.
What I'm trying to say is that there is not a definitive advantage in all cases. Sir, I don't know if you believe that you could beat Serena Williams in tennis, but I probably think that that's not the case. There are not all cases where all men are physically superior to all women. And at the end of the day, in this conversation, we're not talking about that. We're talking about trans women who are, in fact, women, who deserve to play in a gender that matches their sports, who deserve all the benefits that Miss Gaines is talking about. And as a cisgender Black woman, I can say definitively that my womanhood is not threatened by a transgender person asserting hers as well.
Senator Hirono.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I thank all of the persons who are testifying today. For Ms. Robinson, do you know what
government did not move for a stay of the decision.
Well, Judge Detburn, I want to continue on this line of questioning. In your court, what matters more? The rights of individuals or your political ideology?
I apply the law, the facts.
I ask a question, which matters more?
Well, my political ideology doesn't matter at all.
Okay, so I don't believe you. And I think this case demonstrates that you are willing to subjugate the rights of individuals to satisfy your political ideology. This case involves a male defendant you sentence the defendant to the absolute lowest sentence under law. Let's look at another case. Let's look at United States versus Chazen. Now, Chazen is a particularly nasty case. In Chazen, the defendant was accused
There's a general election taking place in Virginia. Huge critical election. You've got statewide positions where folks are running. You've got the gubernatorial race. You've got Democrats and Republicans battling who's going to control the House. Of course, 2 years ago, Democrats took control of the House, and that's how Don Scott, my alpha brother, became the Speaker of the House, first time an African-American in Virginia history. They're looking to hold on to the House. Of course, in the Senate, Democrats keep control of the Senate. The most powerful person there is Senator Louise Lucas, who controls the money. But when it comes to the Virginia Democrat, the governor's race, you have two folks. Your Lieutenant Governor, Winsome Earl Sears, who is running on the Republican side against Democrat Abigail Spanberger. And joining us right now is Abigail Spanberger. Glad to have you here on Roland Martin Unfiltered. What immediately jumps out when we talk about these issues that we're facing, massive number of people in Virginia have lost their jobs because of the federal government cuts. African Americans, 1 in 5 federal workers. That's having a tremendous impact on black communities. More than 3,000 black women have lost jobs in this economy since January. What specifically are you looking to do to help government workers who have lost their jobs because of MAGA and Doge, but also just broadly African Americans who are being the tax on anti-DEI that's put a lot of black women and black people out of work?
Well, Roland, I want to begin by thanking you. I know you're headed to Virginia very soon to campaign with Speaker Scott and support so many of our candidates who are running for the House of Delegates, incredible candidates who are going to flip their seats. And the issue that you were raising of, the first round of Doge and now the impact that we are feeling of Doge essentially 2.0 right now is devastating to Virginia's economy and to Virginians. And so before I get to the what am I going to do about it, the first piece of it is that right now we have a governor and a lieutenant governor who are saying nothing. Since January, when the assault on the federal workforce began, they have said nothing. They have justified it. They have said everybody loses their jobs from time to time. And they have not stood up for Virginians and for their livelihoods. And the impact, it has a significant ripple, a wave effect. It is federal workers. It is government contractors. It is small business owners. It's restaurant owners. It is people across our communities who have seen the chaos created by this administration, by Doge, and now by these additional waves, these punitive federal firings that the president is choosing to inflict upon so many federal workers in the middle of this shutdown. And the impact is enormous, and is disproportionately impacting Black women in particular. And so as governor, once I am in the seat November 4th as our election swearing in comes in January, it will be a priority for me to support federal workers in their transition into the private sector or state public sector. When
we say support, what does that mean? So, for instance, your counterpart in Maryland, Governor Wes Moore, they've been really hit hard, and they've been really proactive about placing federal workers in state jobs and others. And so, what specifically are we talking about?
Well, and so looking at what Governor Moore has done is a tremendous and clear example of what actual leadership looks like in the face of attacks on your workforce. And so, as governor, I will, in some cases, copy and mirror the strong efforts of what it is that he is doing, ensuring that through the office of the governor that we are prioritizing and making, both prioritizing the transition of fired federal employees into state service, where that might be their choice, but also ensuring that we are, supporting the transition of the workforce. And typically what that means is when recruiting businesses to Virginia, when working with large-scale employers within Virginia, ensuring that the Virginia Office of Economic Development, ensuring that the governor's office, that a future Secretary of Commerce are focused on using, among the many great benefits of bringing business and investments to Virginia, is the fact that we have an incredible workforce that is mission driven, that is focused, that has a breadth of experience that frankly has been cast out of the workforce because of the Trump administration. And as someone who once, many years back left federal service myself, I was a CIA officer, the transition into the private sector can be a challenge. Everything from translating your resume into things that private sector employers may understand, to restarting the experience of going through a very different type of interview set. And so in some of the ways we have, in addition to strong examples to our neighbors, from our neighbors in Maryland, we have the mechanics of it is we have strong programs for military veterans who are transitioning out of the military who face some of the same challenges. And you also noted the attacks on DEI. We've seen that in Virginia, particularly initially began at Virginia Military Institute.
Right, and so go to my iPad. You'll see the first black superintendent at VMI was forced out, and he said it was politics, not job performance. You got Donald Trump, who in his administration constantly attacking the president of George Mason, Gregory Washington, as well. And so, if you're governor, what are you going to say to Donald Trump and his administration for their constant attacks on African Americans, but it also, especially African American leaders in education?
And African American leaders in education, whether it's General Wins or President Washington, and even President Ryan at UVA, who he's a white man, but he put in place important, valuable, really strong DEI policies in place and was forced out as a result. As governor, I am going to stand up for the academic freedom of our institutions. As governor, I will make clear that teaching our whole history, particularly in the Commonwealth of Virginia, is essential for the ability of all of our children and our citizens to understand, both the greatest triumphs and the greatest tragedies that have occurred within Virginia, and understanding our strengths, our greatest weaknesses, our greatest sins, and our greatest successes. And we have a governor who, at the high school level, has endeavored to erase any sort of, quote unquote, divisive history, which frankly is just history. And we have a governor who has not stood up for incredible leadership. You put the picture of General Wins up. Here's a man who attended Virginia Military Institute himself, went on to have a 30-plus year career in the United States Army, returned, kind of not necessarily seeing it was in his usual path, returned to VMI to lead the Institute at a particularly challenging time, and every year received performance related bonuses because he had brought up the numbers of recruits, right, had increased class size, was doing incredible things. And then when you look at Gregory Washington, the president at George Mason, the recognition of how much he has expanded upon and grown that institution is clear, because seeing the attacks coming for him, frankly, in large part in the absence of a governor willing to do it, it was the business community who stood up and made clear that everything that President Washington has done has been to the great success and benefit of the larger kind of economy.
Right. So here,
Virginia region.
So here are African American leaders doing the job. They keep talking about merit, but then they're trying to take them out because they're black. I only got about 5 more minutes. I got to ask you this here. You have some robust HBCUs. To your point, we're going to be at Virginia State University on Thursday on the campus there. I did the commencement before. I've been to Norfolk State. I've been to Virginia Union and others. What plans do you have, specific plans for investment in these universities? When I travel to a lot of these HBCUs, when I look facilities, look, the University of Virginia looks a hell of a lot different than Virginia State, than Norfolk State. When I even get in private HBCUs, and the reality is, when we start talking about black doctors and black engineers and black lawyers, they're coming out of disproportionately HBCUs. Now they're going on to predominantly white institutions for graduate programs, but for what type of investment are we talking about if you are governor that these HBCUs can expect to train the next generation of leaders?
Beginning, and I'll just pivot back to this very quickly and then get to your question. During my time in Congress, I was on the HBCU caucus. I served on the Ag Committee, sat next to Congresswoman Alma Adams, who was the chair of that caucus. And we worked aggressively to ensure that we were pushing additional funds, particularly to the 1890s institutions that for years upon years upon years had been underfunded compared to the 1860s institutions. And now, given the experience and the breadth of the work, you're going to Virginia State. Virginia State is our land-grant university. They are incredible. The president there, the dean of the agriculture department, everybody's fantastic. I hope you enjoy your time there. But we have seen what happens after decades and decades and decades of underinvestment. Certainly not just in our land-grant institutions, but in our HBCUs more broadly. As governor, I have already made a commitment to ensure and to aggressively work. And you mentioned Louise Lucas, who is the head of our Appropriations Committee in the Senate, and the leader of the Appropriations Committee in the House of Delegates. And don't forget the biggest supporter for HBCUs is a man from Virginia, Congressman Bobby Scott. He's responsible for, yes, there's Alma Adams, but your former colleague Bobby Scott deserves a lot of that credit for those billions going to HBCU. Virginia's 3rd district. Virginia's 3rd, and certainly with Norfolk State and Hampton in his district or in his region, I'm trying to think before and after redistricting, has been an extraordinary advocate. And so I have spent a tremendous amount of time, in addition to my commitments to ensure that we are really meeting the needs and pushing more funding to HBCUs. I was down at Norfolk State in the last month or so talking to some of their board members, and the amazing thing is they continue to grow numbers because it's an incredible school, and people across the country want to come to Virginia because we have 5 HBCUs, and they're incredible. We've got 2 publics, 3 privates. Yep. They're big, they're small, they're land grants, everything. But they are still putting students in hotels because they do not have the physical infrastructure.
And that's happening at HBCUs around the country. Yep.
And that's a real challenge. And so ensuring that we are seeing it both in the recognition of the value that they bring to Virginia. You look at the numbers of the members of our General Assembly. So many of our members of the General Assembly leadership are themselves graduates of HBCUs, either undergrad or later went back for graduate school. And ensuring that we recognize the value of HBCUs from an educational perspective, but the argument that that I will always make to the broader Commonwealth is they're drivers of our economy. People come to Virginia because of our HBCUs and stay in Virginia and create businesses and grow businesses and are innovators, and the examples are just limitless of people who have carried on that journey. And and ensuring that when someone arrives with a dream of going to Hampton or a dream of going to Virginia Union, that their experience from start to finish needs to be one that is one of success, because frankly, the presidents are doing the work, the professors are doing the work, and it's places where some of those state supports have fallen short in the past that make it so someone might transfer out, or they might leave what had otherwise been their dream school. And that's to the detriment of that student, to the detriment of the HBCUs, but I would argue to the detriment of kind of Virginia as a larger entity, and ultimately down the road an economy.
Last question for you. Obviously, Democrats want to sweep all statewide seats. You're running for governor. You've got folks running for lieutenant governor. You got Jay Jones running for attorney general. African American, had him on the show as well. Is this still a unified ticket? Do you still stand with him? With all of this, with this text messaging controversy, I'm hearing from black voters out there. They saw how Democrats stood behind Northam. They saw what happened to Justin Fairfax. And so do state Virginia Democrats, are you still unified standing with Jay Jones as a unified ticket running in November?
Well, I would note, and this was some time ago, but at the time, there were many of us who had put calls on the governor then to step aside. As it relates to the current circumstance with Jay Jones, when the text messages first came out, I had a conversation, a good conversation with Jay, where I spoke very frankly, and he spoke very frankly. And to his credit, he spoke very clearly about these text messages, about the fact that, I think he said that they made him sick to his stomach to go back and read. And for me, I very publicly denounced them. I found them to be, abhorrent, and particularly at a time in this moment where we've seen heightened violent rhetoric, and certainly we have seen politically motivated murders and throughout the summer more recently. It's incredibly important that everyone be very clear-eyed in our denunciation of any violent rhetoric. And again, he has apologized. He has stated that so plainly, notably